It's kind of weird that we're still having the term of cross-border transactions in like a global world, because I also don't send cross-border emails. Just from privacy perspective for a transaction, eCash might be the most private at the moment. The big downside of eCash is, like for Cashew, for example, is that it's a single sig. So you're trusting the operator not to rug you. The question is always private towards whom? The Mint cannot rug you as Daniel. The Mint doesn't, because it's so private, the Mint also doesn't know if someone says, hey, here is an eCash node, please give me back my Bitcoin. The Mint doesn't know if it's Daniel or Veronika who want their money back. Yeah. So either the Mint drugs you and me and everyone else, or no one. Yeah. Whereas in other or like Coinbase, for example, they can close Daniel's account if they have an issue of who you are, what you're doing, whatnot. So individually, an eCash Mint cannot do that. Custodial is always easy. Hey, give me your money. I update my Excel sheet for you.
Today I'm talking to Veronika Kütt. She's a mathematician, a Bitcoin and Lightning Network expert, Layer 2 researcher and speaker. Thanks for joining, Veronika. Could you maybe as a start briefly explain what Bitcoin is and why you think it matters?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, what is Bitcoin and why does it matter? I think, Bitcoin is the first nation-state independent monetary network that we have. And that is currently, I think, first and foremost fulfilling one of the three monetary properties, which is the store of value property. I think this is very important, especially as we have seen in the last couple of years, where even in Western countries, we had to struggle with higher than usual inflation rates, while we in Western Europe, we only had 10% inflation, while in other countries the inflation rates are much higher. Bitcoin is a mechanism first of all, I think, for people to save their to store their value, and with that to store their energy, because basically what inflation actually is, it's a hidden tax. It's, if you want to say it even harsher, it's theft, basically time theft. And so I think that's a very important thing, and we can see that people, especially during COVID, they were starting to buy all kinds of like scarce assets, just to feel safe with their in monetary terms. And then I think, and that's also my research area, as you said, like the layers too. The second property of money is the medium of exchange property, which basically means that we don't do barter trading. If we go very much back in history, you have a cow and I have 2 sheep, but maybe you don't want my 2 sheep. So we use a monetary medium to exchange items against this monetary medium. So we don't have to exchange the items directly. And the thing with Bitcoin at the moment is that on the base layer, on the Bitcoin protocol layer, Bitcoin can only do so many transactions, which is like 7 to 10 per second. And this is not very much. So if we're thinking about onboarding like hundreds of millions of people onto Bitcoin and have them be able to do several transactions in the best case during a day or so, and then 7 to 10 transactions per second is way too little. So and there is different mechanisms to increase the transaction throughput, it is called, meaning to be able to make more transactions on the network. And one of them, for example, is, and there was a big debate now in 2017, which left to the the blockchain being split when they were arguing about having bigger blocks. No? Because Bitcoin is a blockchain and all the transactions are put into these blocks, but they're only they're quite small. So some people argued, hey, we can just make the blocks bigger, so we have a higher transaction throughput. But first of all, with making the blocks bigger, it gives us a factor of like 10, 20, 30x or whatnot, but this wouldn't be sufficient. The downside of this is that it is becoming much more difficult to run a node because of the bandwidth that you need for processing this. And so another possibility to scale, to have a higher transaction throughput, is to basically go off-chain. You might have heard, I think the term from Lightning probably. On-chain is like Bitcoin protocol layer, and then we have off-chain where we take transactions off the Bitcoin blockchain, and then we can transact here, and then at some point we just go back to Bitcoin. So that's the medium of exchange property. And I think, when I get back to your initial question, what is Bitcoin? I think Bitcoin is a global monetary network that is still in its very infancy. And I said recently to someone, it's kind of weird that we're still having the term of cross-border transactions in like a global world, because I also don't send cross-border emails. So I think the equivalent of the Internet of Information, where everything that we're sending is getting copied, is like an Internet of Value, where we can now send digital data, and money is basically just digital data, where we can send it without copying it. And this is what Bitcoin facilitates, or this is the properties it brings. And now is the question to just make it a little bit more efficient and see how we can onboard everyone, and also while preserving as many of the properties of Bitcoin as possible, because we can all just use Coinbase, then there is no privacy. If Coinbase tries to censor me or whatnot, I cannot do anything against that. If they close my account, if they don't give me access to my Bitcoin anymore, I cannot do anything about it. So we're developing these layer 2 solutions also with a thought in mind: how can we preserve as many as of the properties of Bitcoin, or even improve upon them? For example, in terms of privacy, because the base layer of Bitcoin is not very private. It's a global ledger. Everyone who's running a node can see all the data being processed on the network. So with going into a second layer, we might be able to increase on the property of privacy compared to the base layer.
There is more privacy on second layers. You mentioned the block size. So there was a block size war, right? And they did not increase it because, or the argument is because otherwise the data becomes so much that at some point the centralized data centers can only manage it and it's not as decentralized anymore. Or what are in your view, the best reasons that we keep it that small? Because we could, on the other hand, just expand it, right, in a way, and it would not even require more processing power, right?
I mean, at the moment, I think the size of the Bitcoin blockchain is around, don't give me 750 gigabyte, 800 gigabyte. Oh, plus minus. If we had bigger blocks, the data requirements would just would increase so rapidly that for a user like you and me, the hardware requirements would just be so high that not so many people would run a node, and therefore we'd be ending up with a couple of yeah, well-established entities that are running nodes, and therefore a higher degree of centralization in the network overall. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're working on layer 2. So obviously you don't see Bitcoin as only a store of value, but yeah, a global payment system, right?
I mean, even if I think, yes, I would like to see it adopted also as a medium of exchange. It's currently very much debated, or not very much debated. There is some strong voices in the Bitcoin community that were pushing back on the medium of exchange property, and also making changes to the base layer. But I personally, yes, I would like to see more transactions being able to facilitate more transactions on Bitcoin. But even if we only saw it as a store of value, and if we didn't have Lightning, for example, like the base layer wouldn't even suffice to be a store of value. Like hundreds of millions of people, even if they only did like once a month a transaction, yeah, let's do the
Even
math.
then,
Not do it. Even then,
yeah,
yeah. So we definitely need some scaling, and we noticed that also with Lightning, especially for the end user, there are some difficulties, and this is why I think that there is more scaling solutions being explored at the moment.
yeah.
Yeah.
So will the base layer then remain something that only rich people will use? What is the base layer then?
I think the base layer, I mean, the Bitcoin base layer is the most secure network on this planet. It has a better uptime than the Fed, or I don't know, whichever other, like, and it's by far the most secure network that we have, powered by, I don't know where the hash rate stands at the moment, but
Yeah, go from all-time high to all-time high.
exactly. Powered by a lot of energy, which cannot. I mean, Bitcoin cannot be compromised by anyone. You cannot just get access to this amount of hardware or even the amount of energy. So it cannot be compromised. And with this, the base layer is the ultimate chord, I think, also for a couple of scaling solutions. So when we're looking at different protocols, what we can do, and this is basically the area of research, is how can we facilitate transactions on another layer, and then basically stamp that, or like into Bitcoin as the ultimate chord, or or with Lightning, if you and me, we have a channel and one of us tries to cheat on the other one, no, we can go to Bitcoin kind of, and as the ultimate chord, and if someone tried to cheat, the other party can get all the funds in the channel.
Interesting, yeah. And could you, in simple terms, explain what the Lightning Network is and how it works actually?
Yeah, so the Lightning Network is it works in the way that it's made up of individual channels. So always two parties can have a channel with each other, which is basically a 2 of 2 multi-sig on Bitcoin. So if we wanted to establish a channel, one of us, or there is also actually dual funding now, but the default mechanism is that one of the two parties is sending money into a multi-sig on Bitcoin, and this is our channel then. And let's say you put 1 Bitcoin into this channel, and this is then called the balance. of the channel, and we can make transactions inside this channel for like very little fees, because it's basically just a ledger that we're having between the two of us. So always when we're making a transaction, we're updating our ledger like in a cryptographically secure manner, that also if I'd be like, oh, I sent you this money, or no, or I didn't receive your money, and you'd be like, no, you can actually go to the Bitcoin court and claim the money, for example, that you didn't get. And then it's not just one channel, but it's like a multitude of channels. So a multitude of two of two multisigs. And if I want to send, let's say, I want to send money to Alice, but I don't have a direct channel with Alice, but I have a channel with you and you have a channel with Alice, then I can just send the money through you to Alice. Or if we are technically a little bit more correct, I'm actually not sending you money and you send money to Alice, because how would I make sure that you're not keeping the money to yourself? Yeah. Okay, I know you and I maybe trust you, but in the Lightning channel, it's a global network. Normally, I don't know the peers whom I'm routing through. So I'm not just sending money and be like, hey, please forward it to person XYZ. But what we're using cryptographic mechanisms so that everyone is basically is kind of locking money, and then the recipient is the first one who can unlock money, and then it's going back. But okay, that's maybe a bit too far, but in general, it's a network of individual nodes that have channels which is each other, and you can route like kind of hop from one to the other. Yeah, and you have a mechanism. It's called like pathfinding, where you figure out which way to go on a very simple level.
So if I can route to Alice, Alice needs to be on the network and at least have one channel with one other second party, right?
Yes.
And that often is also like the challenge of opening a channel, especially with regards to self-custody, right? So I tried Lightning wallets, not too often, but Phoenix, I think, is self-custody.
Yes,
it
exactly.
was quite a headache. I think I got help, so I didn't even do it myself. But the funding of a channel, the first step, there seems to be a lot of difficulties if you do it in self-custody, right? Could you explain what the challenge is, in fact, here?
So that's interesting that you mentioned this, because this is something I was criticizing some while ago, actually, because people told me like, no, once there was Lightning, people said everyone can now self-custody Bitcoin. Whereas I said, like, I think it is still very difficult if you don't know how Lightning works. Because you open Phoenix, and then first of all, you need so-called liquidity to receive in the beginning. And I was mixing up the terms before when I said we put one Bitcoin into the channel. I called that balance, but that is actually the channel capacity. And then you have the channel balance, and the channel balance tells how many funds are on which side of the channel. And let's say we open a channel with each other, and or let's say you want to receive.
So before I go on the Lightning Network, I always need a second party to open a channel with?
If it's supposed to be non-custodial, yes. So let's say you want to receive Bitcoin on the Lightning Network via Phoenix. This means that you need to have a channel with someone. And
Sorry, I cannot just think, okay, I'm going to take my time tonight. I'm going to sit in my room and I open a channel and I look into it. No, I need a second party.
Yeah, but Phoenix, for example, they have so-called LSPs, Lightning Service Providers. This is what you see in your Phoenix app. They're like, hey, you can buy inbound liquidity for this and that amount of money. Yeah. But if I imagine I had no clue what Bitcoin and Lightning is, and I open an app and I'm like, wait, I just want to receive like $2, and why do I have to buy? What is this inbound liquidity? And then they have this bucket analogy. It's well made. I think Phoenix is an absolute awesome product, but still, if you have no idea how it works, I think it's extremely confusing. So you have to buy this inbound liquidity, so you have a channel with balance, with funds on the other side, so you can receive. Yeah.
Yeah, and this inbound liquidity that I'm buying is not the equivalent of what I'm actually funding my channel with.
No, this should be the same, plus a small fee. Yeah, for the LSP and also like the on-chain fees, because every channel open is an on-chain transaction, because you're having a 2 of 2 multisig then with your counterparty. Yeah. But more or less, the inbound liquidity is the channel capacity.
So if I'm going on the Lightning Network for the first time and I actually want to receive funds, I still have to, if I want to do it in self-custody, first have to fund and get inbound liquidity.
To buy inbound liquidity. Exactly. And then the next thing is what I think is an issue for users that are not very familiar with the network. So let's say you buy $10 inbound liquidity, yeah, and I want to send you $8, yeah. Fine, okay, you managed, you have your inbound liquidity, I can send you $8, yeah. And then 2 days later, we catch up for lunch, and you pay, so I owe you another $15, yeah. And then you're like, hey, I have this Phoenix thing now. You can just refund me in via this wallet, via Lightning. And I'm like, yeah, cool, okay, I can do that. But the thing is, you had $10 in inbound liquidity, but you already received $8. So now you only have $2 in inbound liquidity if you didn't spend anything in the meantime. So if you want to receive from me, you need more inbound liquidity, meaning, and that's technically it's called a splice in. So there is the possibility to increase the capacity of the channel. Yeah. But this means you need another on-chain transaction. And in the worst case, we have on-chain fees of like, let's say not too high, like $7, which is like not crazy. We're expecting on-chain fees to go to like different levels. Let's say we have slightly increased on-chain fees of $7. So you want to receive 15 from me, but you have to do a splice in. You have to increase the channel capacity to receive, and then you have to pay $7 on top for increasing the channel capacity. And I mean, you're a Bitcoin proponent, and you're like, okay, we're in the beginning, blah blah blah. That's expensive, but okay, I try it. But imagine, what I always said is like, imagine you're being told Lightning is the cheapest network ever, but you have no clue what that is. And then someone gives you this app and you want to receive $10 and you have to pay 15 on top or whatnot. And the thing is, I think, so I'm also very interested in psychology and everything. And I think when people are told is very easy and very cheap, and then they face the issue of having to do a splice in. I mean, they just see something you have to pay on top. They don't call it splice in, but the user just notices, oh, I want to receive $10 and I have to pay 70. I have to pay 7 on top or so.
But can I
cheat it? I think.
Of course.
And I think what happens then is like, this Lightning thing is stupid. I'm not going to touch this for the next 5 years. Yeah, this is how humans.
Absolutely. So I wonder, we were talking about all these routing networks, and so is it correct that whatever I want to receive, I first have to have an inbound liquidity, because it doesn't the liquidity of my counterpart count in? So if he has the liquidity that I don't have, I can still receive an amount that I never funded my channel with in the first place. Or what did I not understand here?
They have to open a channel with that. You don't have to fund all the money. You basically have to pay them for locking the money with you in that channel.
Is then the result that I always need funding, an equivalent amount of funding of what I want to get at the end? And does the funding of all the others in the network with the all connected channels not play a
You're
role?
basically just paying for them to lock the money, because you don't have to pay for the amount of money they lock, but it's you just kind of what's it called? Opportunity cost, yeah? Because they cannot use this money for any other purpose. So you're basically paying them a fee for locking that money in the channel, but you don't have to fund the total amount you want to receive. This would be like, yeah,
A catastrophe.
yeah.
Okay, basically the advantage of Lightning compared to the base layer is that you can do a lot of transactions, probably even more than with credit cards. Like the volume
Absolutely.
would be enough. But
sorry.
yeah, so it would solve a lot of scaling issues. But this example is a problem, right? I mean, especially for mainstream adoption. So are there solutions in the workings?
So there is other protocols at the moment that are trying to solve, especially these, for example, inbound liquidity issues. That if I want to receive in a non-custodial manner, I have to pay someone for locking money with me. There is, for example, ARC. You might have heard of that, which might offer. I mean, it's in the very, very early stages. I think the idea just came to light like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
And there's currently 2 companies working on an implementation. But ARC is, potentially with ARC, we have the possibility to have users receive funds without having there is no inbound liquidity issues. And they're currently playing around, though, with the custody model of those funds.
So ARC is a solution that is being integrated into Lightning, or is that a separate solution? And
it's a separate.
What does it stand for, actually? ARC?
ARC is just it comes from the boat, when there was the flooding, and they had the animals all go in the boat.
Yeah.
That's kind of the analogy that the person that ideated the whole thing, Burak, this is where the name comes from. To save the people, or to save the and it is so ARC is a layer 2 solution, or a scaling solution in itself, but we will see probably interoperability between different ARCs via Lightning. Yeah. And not just via Lightning, but also, for example, between there is another protocol, it's eCash, for example, or also Liquid. We can bridge between these different protocols via Lightning. And this is, for me, the main use case I see these days in Lightning as an interoperability solution. Because if we had ARC doing its own thing and like Liquid doing its own thing, and if I want to go from Liquid to ARC, I have to go to Bitcoin main chain and everything, that would be very, very cumbersome. So what I see happening in the future is that you basically transact between these different protocols via Lightning, meaning that if you're in an ARC and you want to go to, for example, Liquid, you have kind of like exchanges, or in eCash they call them Lightning gateways, I think, where you basically have an someone exchanges kind of between the layer 2 solution and then sends the funds via Lightning and then like swaps into the different protocol again on the other side. But this, yeah, all these protocols are very, very early in their yeah, the only one that has some adoption is Liquid actually at the moment, which is a sidechain. I think Liquid is already around for like 5-6 years.
And just for the understanding, so we have a base layer, then we have a second layer, and then in my understanding, if Lightning is the interoperability layer for the others, that those would be the third layer, but now they're the side chain. So is there a technical difference, or is it just a way of imagining how it works? Because one thing comes from the side, the other thing is on top. Isn't Liquid a third layer, or is that just playing with words?
I just say like, so you have the Bitcoin base layer, and then it's like you, for example, you have an eCash mint here that is like stuck onto Bitcoin. You have a Liquid sidechain here that is like via a multi-sig. It's connected to Bitcoin. Then you have the Liquid sidechain here, and here you have another like eCash mint, and you have an ARC, and so on. But it's like they're always locked via some multi-sig or some multi-sig variation or whatnot, or ARC a little bit different, but they're locked onto Bitcoin, and then they have their own little universe. And I see, but they are all like second layer, but they're disconnected. And then you have like Lightning as the net in between all these protocols. Yeah.
Okay.
Which
so
or larger and have different mechanisms of how they work. Yeah, so an eCash mint works completely different to Liquid, but in the end they're locked to Bitcoin. Yeah, an eCash mint, depending if it's Fedimint or if it's Cashew, it's like a single sig or a multi sig. Yeah, but they're having like a one locking mechanism to Bitcoin where funds go in and out.
Okay, so they're all connected to the base layer and connected to Lightning, and that's why they're called, or Liquid is called sidechain, because it's like a separate transfer of data connected to Lightning and Bitcoin.
I mean, sidechain. It's called sidechain because it's a separate blockchain.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're mining blocks on Liquid. Yeah, not every layer 2 is a blockchain in itself. Liquid is. Yeah.
Could you maybe explain what it solves again? So it's also in terms of privacy, it has advantages.
For example, on Liquid, you have so-called confidential assets, so you cannot see, I think, the amount being transferred or some properties of the asset. But in general, what you can do on the sidechain is you can have completely different, you can have different block sizes, different block times, or for example, you might have heard about covenants.
Yes, but could you explain that?
This is mechanisms on how you can restrict transactions on Bitcoin, but it needs certain, like at the moment, these covenants we cannot do on the Bitcoin base layer. We would need to do a so-called soft fork, where we do an upgrade to the Bitcoin network, and this is very difficult to achieve because like basically everyone, there is no chief information technology officer that is like, hey, this is like, at least not in Bitcoin. That's a criticism with other blockchains. So what we can do on sidechains, for example, Liquid has certain so-called opcodes, that is tools, software tools on the blockchain, like in the coding language, in the programming language, that they have different mechanisms there. So you can basically test certain things on side chains, yeah, or just have yeah, you can try different things on the side chains much easier, yeah, or even different programming languages. Yeah, it doesn't even have to be the same programming language like Bitcoin has. Bitcoin has, like, it's called Bitcoin script, and it is very limited in functionality, for example, which is a feature and a bug at the same time. So the feature of Bitcoin script being very limited is that it's very secure. Like the less things you can do, yeah, the less can go wrong. Very, like, if you say it easily. But the bug is that you can just, there is Bitcoin, you cannot do much on Bitcoin. You cannot verify, you cannot even do multiplication on Bitcoin. Yeah. I mean,
in what sense, multiplication?
You have no when you in programming, you do certain actions like additions, multiplications of and you cannot even multiply on Bitcoin. I mean, you could express that through many additions. Yeah, a multiplication is but that is very cumbersome. And yeah, so, but to come back to your question, what you can do on these side chains is you can have all kinds of functionalities on the side chain, whichever functionality you want, basically. But then the question is how to bridge that to Bitcoin. This is the main question. Yeah.
So let's say I want to do a private transaction, and then I should use Liquid if I want to be as private as possible.
It
not as easy as that.
Yeah, it's not as easy as that. I think from privacy perspective for a transaction, eCash might be the most private at the moment. The big downside of eCash is, like for Cashew, for example, is that it's a single sig. So you're trusting the operator not to rug you. And also there is no mechanism to actually figure out how many so-called eCash nodes the operator gave out. But the transactions are, like, they're fully private, and you can even do them like, so basically you get a digitally signed certificate, and I can even send you this eCash node, this digitally signed certificate. I can send it to you via Telegram, via Nostr, via whatnot, yeah, which is pretty cool. And no one, so from a privacy perspective, this is very good. But then you have to also figure out, because I think the Mint sees your IP and whatnot, but I'm not too much into, like, so the question is always private towards whom? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, like, privacy is not just, yeah, this is a very deep topic. And I think no one has yet, like, for the average user, it's very difficult to stay private in these systems. Yeah.
So eCash is the most private, but it's also custodial.
Yeah, as said, it's custodial. So you basically have a mint to whom you send your Bitcoin, and if the mint is nice, it gives you back your Bitcoin when you want your Bitcoin back. Okay. If the mint, the good thing though is that the mint cannot rug you as Daniel. The Mint doesn't, because it's so private, the Mint also doesn't know if someone says, hey, here is an eCash node, please give me back my Bitcoin. The Mint doesn't know if it's Daniel or Veronika who want their money back. Yeah. So either the Mint drugs you and me and everyone else, or no one. Yeah. Whereas in other or like Coinbase, for example, they can close Daniel's account if they have an issue of who you are, what you're doing, whatnot. So individually, an eCash Mint cannot do that. They cannot censor Daniel or Veronika individually, either all of us, but the mint can rug all of us. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that is quite a fundamental difference. So censorship in that sense is not really possible. So they either steal from all of us, not knowing. So they can steal, but they don't know from who they steal from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or I mean, they cannot exactly. Either they can steal also a single user, but then they don't know whom they steal from, or if they want to or everyone. Yeah, exactly. Or what you're already getting, like every protocol has its like little perks, and then we need to figure out which what does which user needs which property at what time.
Okay, let's just say I want to do a private transaction, so I want to go from the base layer to eCash. Can you explain the journey from base layer to eCash? So
you just send Bitcoin to an address of a mint, or actually, I mean, there's quite some apps now. I think Cashew, as far as I'm informed, only works.
I need an app. Cashew.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah.
I find them in the Play Store or in the App Store.
Yeah, should be. Some of them are, or like an in-browser app. There is eNuts, there is Macadamia, I think, so they have a nice nut branding. As far as I know, the Cashew protocol only works with Lightning, so not from the base layer, but you can only access via Lightning. And then you have this like eNuts app, for example, and you can even choose your mint, I think. They have some rating, but at the moment the rating system is not too
trustworthy,
evolved, or no, we're very early, but I think all of these things are getting improved upon. So you're having your in-browser application, or and you basically you choose your mint, you send Lightning funds, and then you get eCash nodes. You just see it as a balance in your wallet. Yeah, pretty much like Lightning. Like a custodial Lightning wallet of Satoshi is very similar actually to how an eCash wallet works.
And a mint is what? Could you explain that?
A mint is kind of like a bank where you send your Bitcoin funds via Lightning. You send it to the mint, and what the mint then does is it hands you out. It's minting these these eCash nodes, and they're signing them. It's called blind signing because they actually don't know what they're signing, but they're the signature they're signing for a specific amount, and then they're kind of like crediting or giving this signed eCash node to you as a user.
Interesting. Also complicated for newcomers. I think
to use, not because it's custodial. To be fair, like to use eCash is very, very simple.
So if you want to maintain privacy or have certain requirements, the more complicated it gets. But once you use custodial solutions, it's probably going to become extremely easy, or it is already very easy to use.
I mean, custodial is always easy. Hey, give me your money. I update my Excel sheet for you. No, I mean, there is much more cryptography. Like, with eCash, it's there's more involved there. But in general, the custodial, the service provider solution is always easier for the user than the sovereign approach to holding and transacting money.
Yeah, amazing. So what do you think, or what are the next big milestones on improving Lightning, or do you think it's all going to be like additional solutions like eCash, Liquid, Arc, and so on?
I think it will be a mix of many. I also think that 95% of the layer twos, like we're seeing a huge influx of protocols that are calling themselves layer twos at the moment. Yeah, we're assessing them actually at Bitcoin layers. I think 95% of those won't be around in the future, but I think yes, that in the future we'll have a multitude of layer twos, or however we call them then, whatever is the term that we socially agree upon, and which are connected via lightning. And it might be that the solution, or the layer two that will see the most mainstream adoption, that the idea isn't even born yet. Yeah. Yeah, so there is a lot of development at the moment in all kinds of directions. In the last year and a half, a lot happened with Arc, and maybe you've heard of BitVM. We might dig into that in our next conversation. It's another bit of a rabbit hole. Um, but yeah, so there is a lot happening in the last year and a half. It's getting to a point where it's like a full-time job to just kind of be kind of informed of what's going on in yeah, on a superficial level, like not on a deep level on it.
There may be solutions we haven't even seen yet. May also imply that some solutions of today may not survive the future.
I mean, that's in the nature. It's like, I mean, if you break it down, it's like with startups, like 95, well, I don't know what's the rate, no, 92, 95% of startups fail. And that's cryptographic protocols that need adoption. That is like absolute forefront research and no financial technology. Probably it's like 97% are not going to be around. I think Lightning will be around. We've seen a lot of Lightning bashing, I think, in the last like 6 to 9 months. I think Lightning is great, and I think if there was no Lightning, I'd be like, often people say, oh, if there was no Bitcoin, I'd be so depressed right now, no, with what's going on in the world. And in terms of scaling, if there was no Lightning, I'd be like, ooh, that's an issue. Yeah, because I don't know, like, how do you go from Arc to eCash to some state chain to some whatnot?
Are you convinced that, yeah, it will be like the money everyone uses in the future, in 10 years, in 20 years? And if so, when? Or do you still see fundamental challenges ahead of us?
I mean, there is fundamental challenges. I said at the moment, from a scalability perspective, it is currently not possible to onboard like hundreds of millions of users. And I also think that in 10, 15 years time, I hope and I think we'll see much more Bitcoin usage, but I also think that most people haven't even heard I mean, they heard of Bitcoin, but most people don't understand it. They don't understand the purpose. Or like in Western countries, they don't understand the purpose of it, because now inflation is lower again, and you know, the PayPal and everything is working well, and then you have those countries with higher inflation, but they often are having, because the educational level is often lower than in Western countries. So I feel like it's a time, yeah, but no, you cannot really say that. Like, I think, for example, in Nigeria, Bitcoin adoption is pretty high, actually. So it's not, but I think as long as the pressure is not high enough, people will stick with their solutions. And also what we're seeing, even though many people don't like that, but I like to look at what's reality and not just live in my idealized world. I think in many countries, in, for example, many African countries, this is just what we're seeing. A lot of people are adopting stablecoin solutions, yeah, because they are happy with having access to the dollar, which only has like 1, 2, 3% inflation, instead of there, like in Ghana in the last years, it was like 60%. Zimbabwe even worse. I think Nigeria was also pretty high. I don't know the exact rates, but that's a gigantic improvement for them. It was pretty smooth, and I wouldn't wonder if many people stick with these solutions for now, and also for the next 5, 6, 7 years. It's very difficult to say. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I talked to Maya Parbu a couple of months ago, and she wants to, exactly, she's a presidential candidate, and she wants to make Bitcoin a unit of account. So I wonder, that's and abolish taxes entirely, make all the government spending completely transparent. So very bold, very, yeah, that would be like amazing. So I hope she'll realize that. So once Bitcoin becomes a unit of account and actually becomes also stable or less volatile, maybe, then we see a bigger adoption, and user friendliness will play a big role, but it might lead to more custodial solutions, right? Where Bitcoin is going to be used, but not really as it was initially intended. But in general, you're positive or negative, or just realistic?
Positive, realistic.
Yeah.
Positive, realistic. I have big faith in humans, and in general, we're striving for more sovereignty and more freedom, with some darker periods in between. But overall, I'm positively, realistically positive on the future of Bitcoin, on individual freedom and sovereignty. Yeah.
Yeah. And what are your next projects that you're working on?
We're at Bitcoin Layers. We just I will focus a lot on just writing longer research reports and everything on these scaling solutions and everything. So far, I've more focused on like protocol, like assessment of different projects, and now I'll just basically looking what's going on there and trying to explain that to people. Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Well, thank you so much for joining my podcast today and sharing your insights and expertise on the Lightning Network and alternatives. I saw a presentation of you before, and I was a little bit nervous because there were so many technical terms being thrown around, but it was very agreeable, and I also understand there's still a lot of challenges ahead, and it's not yet that user-friendly, but things are developing, and yeah, in general, the outlook is positive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.